The dusty auction yard buzzed with chatter as battered trailers rattled in under a pale morning sun, each carrying animals whose futures balanced on the highest raised hand of the day. At the far end, a chestnut gelding with a long white blaze shifted nervously, his hindquarters marked by thick scars that crisscrossed like a cruel map of past pain and narrow escapes. Children pointed, some with pity and some with fear, while seasoned traders shook their heads because they knew such marks scared away bidders who wanted beauty over bravery in their stables. The announcer's voice boomed from tinny speakers, praising shiny coats and strong shoulders of other horses, but he described the chestnut he used reluctant words like serviceable and needs patient handling. One by one, the sleek animals trotted through the ring, hooves clacking on planks in sharp rhythm, fetching prices that made the scoreboard lights glow bright green above the crowd. When the scarred gelding finally limped forward, the chatter stopped, not out of awe but out of silent agreement that no one would risk money on damaged goods that might never run a clean circle again. A layer of dried mud disguised fresh welts along his flank, and the auctioneer's practiced smile faltered as even the bargain hunters kept their paddles down, and their wallets snapped shut like clamps. The gelding lowered his head and exhaled so deeply that dust rose like a tiny storm around his cracked front shoes, spinning in soft spirals before drifting away unnoticed. The bidding started at $100, the lowest opening of the morning, and still every number card remained stubbornly glued to clutched chests or tucked behind folded arms. Seconds stretched, the auctioneer's chant slipping from quick rhythm to awkward pauses, until he threatened to pull the lot for slaughter transport if no offer came within the next beat of his gavel. Just as he lifted the gavel to end it, a soft voice from the back said 100, and all heads turned to see a woman in a sun-faded denim jacket stepping forward with quiet courage. Her hair, the color of harvested wheat, fell over serious eyes that studied the gelding not with pity, but with the calm focus of someone who sees possibility inside broken shells. The auctioneer seized the moment, begging for a higher bid, but the silence returned thicker than before, and after 3 tries he slammed the gavel and shouted sold in a tone that mixed relief with disbelief. Some people laughed under their breath, convinced the woman had wasted money better spent on nails for a fence or paint for a porch that actually needed fixing. Others shrugged, already marking the next lots in their catalogs, because rescuing lost causes was not a profit game they cared to play on a tight market day. The woman handed over a wrinkled envelope of bills, signed a receipt with steady strokes, and walked to the ring where a handler waited with frayed lead rope dangling like tired yarn. She introduced herself to the gelding as Mara in a tone as gentle as a lullaby, then slid a sugar cube between his trembling lips and waited while sweetness dissolved into trust. The horse's ears flicked, one forward, one back, as if weighing this small gift against all the bitterness he had tasted before in dark barns and battered fields. Mara guided him toward an old trailer that smelled of hay instead of diesel, and each tentative step he took left a faint print shaped like hope in the dry soil beneath. A teenager by the gate whispered to her friend that the animal would probably collapse before reaching the highway, but Mara simply checked the tires, tightened one loose bolt, and secured the ramp with care. Before climbing into her truck, she taped a handwritten note to the inside wall of the trailer, 3 lines that read, rest, heal, run, a promise sealed with a small drawn heart. The gelding's eyes followed a movement of her pen, large and liquid, catching a reflection of sky that he had not dared to look for in months of endless stalls. The engine coughed, the gate clanged shut, and the auction announcer already moved on, selling a lively palomino that earned more in 1 minute than Mara's bruised savings ever could in a season. Yet as the trailer rolled away, a hush settled over the edge of the grounds, the kind that appears when something sacred passes by unnoticed but still felt in the chest like a fluttering bird. A little girl clutching a pink program tugged her father's coat and asked why nobody wanted the pretty horse with the lightning marks on his side that shimmered under dust. The father knelt and muttered that some stories take longer to tell, then promised they would see the ending someday at a show far from this dusty place where new legends might be born. Mara drove along a 2-lane road lined by sunflowers bent under their own weight, singing softly so the gelding could learn the steady pattern of her voice and feel less alone. Wind swirled through open windows, carrying smells of cut grass, warm earth, and distant rain, smells that reminded the horse of fields he once dreamed about while standing in dark stalls. At every red light, Mara glanced into the trailer through a small mirror, and each time she saw the gelding standing taller, as if air alone was straightening his tired spine to its rightful arc. She whispered promises that he would never again taste the biting crack of a whip, and although the words were quiet, the gelding heard them like thunder rolling across open prairie. Passing drivers noticed the scarred animal, and some smiled, believing they had witnessed the start of a miracle that would replay later in their memories as proof kindness still lived on highways. A delivery driver even honked twice in encouragement, and the gelding twitched but did not spook, because Mara reached back and tapped the trailer wall with a rhythm that said, "I'm here, stay brave." The journey ended at a small farm ringed by orange trees, where twilight painted long shadows that looked like welcoming arms across the gravel drive, and barn doors stood open in greeting. Chickens scattered, and a sleepy dog raised its head when Murrah lowered the ramp, but the sound that mattered most was the horse's first cautious hoof on soft ground cushioned with fresh straw. He stepped off into fading light, nostrils flaring at the scent of citrus blossoms mingled with fresh shavings in a waiting stall trimmed with blue ribbons from shows long ago. Mara led him inside, unlatched the rope, and stood back while he circled, measuring space that belonged only to him, every corner swept, every bucket filled with clean water. For the first time since the cruel whip left its last mark, he lifted his tail and let out a low whicker that bounced around the rafters like a shy song, looking for an echo among patient beams. Mara smiled, wiped dust from her cheeks, and whispered that scars are stories skin tells about survival, and that heroes often arrive wearing bandages instead of medals. The gelding blinked, and in that simple motion the promise of tomorrow unfolded like sunrise breaking through barn slats, golden and unstoppable, ready to wash away yesterday's shadows. Outside, crickets tuned their evening choir, unaware they were scoring the opening scene of a tale that would one day move hearts far beyond this quiet patch of earth where hope first found its voice. Mara woke before dawn, her mind humming with plans as the sky held only a thin silver line that promised morning and new chances for the scarred gelding now sleeping in her quiet barn. She brewed hot cocoa instead of coffee, believing the gentle drink matched the gentle trust she hoped to build, and she carried the warm mug outside where mist hovered like soft curtains over a paddock. The horse, whom she had decided to name Valor, stood in his stall with ears forward and eyes bright, as though sensing that a chapter of peace had begun the moment the trailer door closed at the auction yard. Mara spoke his new name 3 times, slow and steady, letting each syllable roll like a calm wave, so Valor could taste the sound and know it belonged to him alone, not to any cruel voice from his past. She unlatched the stall and stepped back, giving him space to walk out on his own, and after one deep breath, he took a sure step onto clean straw, leaving behind the darkness that had shadowed his heart. Outside, sunrise painted the tops of orange trees gold, and songbirds announced the day with bright notes that fluttered through barn beams and landed on Valor's mane like invisible ribbons of welcome. Mara slipped a wide, soft halter over his head, careful not to brush the raised scars, and she smiled when he lowered his neck so the buckle could click without fear or flinch. Together they walked to a small paddock where grass grew thick and sweet, and each knife-sharp scar against his chestnut coat looked less like a wound and more like lightning frozen in fur when sunshine hit it. Valor sniffed the breeze, catching scents of clover, rain left from midnight showers, and faint cinnamon from Mara's pocket where fresh treats waited as simple bribes for bravery. With slow patience she unclipped the lead, but she did not move away. She simply stood beside him, hands open, showing that freedom and friendship could happen at the same time. Valor lifted his head high, as if measuring the sky, then trotted a small circle that grew into a larger one, and his limp became a rolling stride when soft grass cushioned each step. Chickens on the far side of the yard clucked in surprise at his sudden motion, and their quick chatter sounded like a crowd cheering at a hometown parade. Mara laughed, a clear sound Valor had not heard before, and that laugh carried across the field like a bright ribbon, tying an invisible bond between girl and horse. When he stopped near the fence, Mara approached with an apple slice. Holding it flat on her palm, Valor nibbled, juice dripping onto her fingers, and his breath smelled sweet and hopeful. She stroked his neck, counting each scar under her fingers, not to linger on pain but to honor survival, telling him softly that every mark proved he had already beaten the worst storms. After grazing, Mara led him to a large tub filled with warm water and gentle soap, planning to wash away dirt and old sorrow together in slow, calming passes of a sponge. Valor flinched at first touch of water, memories flashing like broken glass. Yet Mara hummed a lullaby she remembered from her own childhood, and the tune thickened the air with safety. Suds turned brown then clear as mud flowed off, revealing muscles drawn tight but still strong, and Mara's eyes filled with quiet pride because she could already see the champion spirit beneath scars. She wrapped his legs in cool bandages soaked with herbal tea, explaining each step in simple words the way a teacher explains a science project, so Valor could follow the lesson of care. A curious neighbor boy named Eli leaned over the fence and asked why she bothered with such a hopeless horse. Mara replied that hope often hides under bruises waiting to be invited out. Eli offered to fetch fresh water, and soon he was carrying buckets that sloshed like small lakes, learning that rescue was not magic but many humble tasks done with steady hands. When Valor lowered his head for the boy to scratch a spot between his ears, Eli's grin burst wide as sunrise, and the barn seemed to glow brighter as kindness became a shared language. Mara decided today's lesson would be simple walking exercises. No saddles or bits, only trussed lines, a long cotton rope clipped lightly so Valor could feel guidance without force. In the arena, soft sand hugged Valor's hooves, and each step stirred tiny clouds that danced in sunlight like gold dust, making every stride look like a moment caught in a snow globe of summer. Mara walked beside him, matching her pace to his, and spoke calm directions, easy left, easy right, words as gentle as wind moving through tall grass on a calm lake shore. Valor listened, sometimes hesitating when old pain sparked, but each time Mara praised the smallest efforts, clapping soft and calling him brave, and the praise filled the arena like cheerful birdsong. By midday, sweat darkened sections of his coat, yet his eyes shone with a new light, the look of someone realizing the world might be kind after all. Mara cooled him down with slow circles, and finally led him to shade beneath the cedar tree, where cicadas sang steady rhythms like drummers keeping time for a tired dancer. She offered a bucket of water flavored with a splash of apple juice, and Valor drank deep, water dripping from his muzzle onto the dusty ground and forming tiny stars in the dirt. Eli returned with his mother, who carried a camera. She asked to take a photo of Valor for the local paper, thinking readers would smile at a rescue story blooming in their own town. Mara agreed on one condition, that the story focus on what Valor could become rather than what he had suffered, because futures shine brighter than memories of pain. The camera clicked, capturing horse, woman, and boy framed by leafy trees, and in that picture scars looked less like damage and more like medals for a silent war bravely fought. Afternoon melted into evening, painting the horizon orange and pink, and Mara walked Valor back to the barn, her hand resting on his withers as though guiding an old friend home from a long trip. She filled his stall with fresh shavings that smelled of pine, hung a hay net packed with timothy, and sprinkled a few peppermints inside so bedtime would taste like surprises. Before closing the door, Mara read him a short poem from a dog-eared book, each line about courage found in quiet hearts, and Valor's breathing slowed until it matched the steady beat of her voice. Outside, Eli hung a handmade sign on the barn gate that read Valor's Haven, letters painted in bright blue, and though the paint dripped, Mara thought the drips looked like tears turning into rainbows. Stars appeared one by one, tiny lanterns against a velvet ceiling, and a cool breeze rustled the orange trees, carrying the soft scent of blossoms through the open windows of the barn. Valor shifted once, then settled, muscles relaxing deeper than they had in years, and the barn itself seemed to sigh, happy to cradle a soul rediscovering rest. Mara whispered goodnight, promising tomorrow would bring new steps, new treats, and maybe even the first lesson in running free across the North Field. As she walked back to the house, the moon rose round and silver, reflecting on a metal water trough and lighting the path, a gentle guardian watching over a scarred horse, and the woman who believed scars were only stories waiting for bright new chapters. Mara's alarm chimed softly at first light, and she hurried through breakfast because a veterinarian named Dr. Singh had promised to arrive early to examine Valor and set a baseline for his healing journey. She swept the aisle, scattered fresh straw, and checked the temperature of the mash cooling on the feed room counter, determined that every detail should say welcome rather than remind Valor of yesterday's hard roads. When Dr. Singh pulled up in a dusty pickup, his kind eyes studied the barn like a teacher grading a hopeful essay, and he inhaled the faint mix of hay, citrus blossom, and linseed floating in warm beams of light. Valor watched with curiosity, nostrils fluttering but head high, and Mara praised him for greeting the visitor bravely as sunlight glinted off the healing ridges along his shoulder, turning scars into soft bronze. The vet moved slowly, letting Valor sniff the tool bag, then stroked his shoulder while speaking in a voice low and even, promising he would look, listen, and learn first before any treatment. He measured pulse and respiration, counting aloud so Mara could memorize healthy numbers, and each digit felt like a stepping stone across a stream of fear toward the solid shore of knowledge. Examining scars gently, Dr. Singh spoke of massage and tissue therapy, noting that skin remembers kindness too, and Valor's eyes softened like dark glass warming in sunrise. He flexed Valor's hind leg. The horse stretched farther than expected, proof yesterday's walks had already eased stiffness, and the vet nodded with real respect. Mara held her breath during a lameness test, counting hoofbeats on packed earth, and when the vet said the limp should fade with targeted exercise, relief overflowed like spring water from a cracked jar. Together they built a plan, Short groundwork, he'll work for strength, herbal salves, daily sunlight, and rest days filled with grooming so boredom never won. Dr. Singh gave Valor a tetanus booster, the needle quick and almost painless, and the horse only flicked an ear because Mara fed him a peppermint at the same time, turning medicine into magic. Before leaving, the vet gave Mara a spiral notebook titled Valor's Progress to record each day's notes, its blank pages gleaming like paths waiting for footprints. After the truck rumbled away, Mara sat on an upturned bucket and wrote the first entry, describing Valor's steady breathing and the hopeful sparkle that now lived in the dark pools of his eyes. Eli arrived with library books on horse care, waving them like treasure maps, and vowing to be Valor's reading buddy, his grin stretching so wide it nearly outshone the cloudy sky. The boy read aloud by the pasture fence, choosing a chapter on famous racehorses who overcame injuries, and Valor listened, ears swiveling as if recording each victory for future reference. Mara used the quiet time to mix a linseed and oat treat, shaping it into a heart that she pressed onto the stall door, where Valor could lick it during the night whenever loneliness whispered. Clouds gathered in the west, shading the world in cool gray. So Mara decided it was the perfect afternoon for Valor's first walk beyond a property, a gentle trek down the lane bordered by wildflowers. She led him past mailboxes and over a wooden bridge where frogs croaked, pairing every new sound with trusted words, while yellow coreopsis and red poppies nodded from the ditches like fans at a parade. A bicycle whizzed by, bells ringing, Valor startled, muscles coiling, yet Mara touched his withers and breathed out slow, showing that exhaling could push fright away the same way wind scatters dandelion seeds. They paused in a meadow where butterflies drifted, and Valor sniffed a purple lupin, scent richer than any auction hay, while a soft breeze carried hints of mountain rain and warm soil. Mara laughed when pollen dusted his nose yellow, and her laughter felt like sunshine breaking through clouds, warming them both despite the cooling air pressing down from tall gray skies. On the return trip, raindrops tapped leaves, creating a soft drumline. Mara tossed her jacket over Valor's back, not for dryness, but to prove that sudden touches no longer meant lashes or chains. At the gate, Eli waited with an umbrella too small for all three, yet he marched beside them proudly, calling himself Valor's squire, a title that made the horse snort in playful approval. Thunder rumbled, but Valor walked on because Mara hummed the lullaby, its notes muffling storms and wrapping them in calm. Inside, they toweled him dry. Each raindrop left tiny clean paths through dust, mapping new constellations on his coat that sparkled like tiny stars under the lantern light. Mara massaged scars with warm coconut oil while telling Valor about future trail rides under leafy arches where blue jays argued overhead, and the gelding's head gradually dropped in sleepy trust. Eli sliced carrots into coins and hid them in hay so Valor could forage and think, giggling when the horse used nimble lips to uncover each hidden prize. As evening settled, Mara opened the big barn doors to let the odor of wet earth mingle with sweet bedding, believing healing required all the good smells a world could offer. She recorded notes in the spiral, walked 1 mile, startled once, relaxed again in 7 seconds, tiny victories written like seeds planted in rows for harvest later. Neighbors came with cookies for Mara and apple slices for Valor, saying the paper's teaser had inspired them, and they lingered to share stories of animals who taught towns to hope. An elderly man hung a faded blue ribbon by the stall, its edges frayed like worn denim, hoping history might repeat for another brave rescue. Valor sniffed the ribbon, perhaps smelling memories too old for words, and Mara whispered that legends often borrow courage from each other across years and miles. Night pressed against windows, but an oil lamp cast a soft halo inside, and the barn felt like a storybook nook where every creature rested under pages filled with adventures yet to turn. Mara sang a lullaby different from yesterday's, promising variety just as she promised safety, because routine builds trust but surprises keep spirits lively. Valor's eyelids drooped, and he sighed so deeply it seemed the breath started in his hooves and traveled upward, carrying old anguish out through nostrils into the forgiving dark. Eli, half asleep on a hay bale, murmured that he dreamed Valor would gallop someday with wind braiding his mane into victory banners, and Mara said dreams make fine blueprints. She locked the doors, patted the dog, and felt rain stop suddenly, leaving the world freshly washed, the scent of petrichor hanging like a benediction over all living things. On her porch, she opened the notebook again, writing, Day 2. Fear shrinks when shared, scars soften when touched with purpose, hope grows fastest where children read aloud. Closing the cover, she glanced toward the barn where one dim light glowed, thinking it looked like a lighthouse, steady and sure, guiding not ships but hearts toward kinder shores. With that comforting image, Mara finally allowed her own eyelids to close, trusting that Valor's night would be filled with dreams of open fields and dawns that arrive carrying nothing but second chances. A bright weekend sun rose over the little farm, and Mara decided that Valor was ready for his first true lesson in strength and trust beyond the safety of soft paddocks and quiet lanes. She invited Eli, his mother, and 3 curious neighbors to watch, explaining that cheering voices would help Valor link new effort with gentle support instead of noisy fear from the auction days. Muffin scent drifted from a basket, cozy and sweet. Eli painted a rough sign that read Training Day and hung it on the arena gate, the letters crooked but proud, while a sleepy dog circled the dirt as if drawing a starting line for dreams. Mara led Valor in slowly, letting him stop and sniff every post, because confidence often grows from small choices made without hurry or hard hands. She clipped on lightweight training reins that rested like ribbons against his neck and chose a soft English saddle borrowed from a friend, one lined with lamb's wool, so Scars would feel only cloud softness. The wool smelled faintly of warm summer fields. Before mounting, Mara pressed her palm against Valor's chest and felt his heart thump fast then settle, and she whispered, "We breathe together, step together, win together." The crowd of 5 stood silent except for the rustle of snack bags and camera clicks, their excitement fluttering like paper flags without making sharp sounds that might break the spell. Mara stepped into the stirrup and swung gently into the saddle, moving slow as sunrise so Valor could balance before she gathered the reins into loose, trusted loops. Dust motes floated like tiny lanterns in the gold light. He took a cautious first stride, ears twitching, and Mara praised him at once, because early praise is the seed from which big courage sprouts tall and strong. They walked the perimeter once, twice, each lap loosening stiff muscles, until Valor's stride turned from careful taps into rolling drumbeats across the even sand. Mara asked for a trot with a soft squeeze of her calf, and Valor sprang forward, legs stretching, Scars flexing like sunlit river lines yet causing no flinch, only flow. Eli cheered, and the other watchers joined, their claps soft but steady, a homemade applause that lifted dust into sparkles around hooves like tiny fireworks of trust. Remembering the vet's plan, Mara guided Valor through gentle figure eights, letting his hindquarters power each turn while his front lifted light as if the past had weighed only feathers, through sand like oars pulling a boat from shore. Cheers rose again, and Valor's ears flicked forward, his eyes wide not with fear but with the wonder of being the hero of a tiny stadium built from friendship. Sweat darkened his coat in a narrow stripe, but Mara kept sessions brief, circling back to long walks each time his breathing grew heavy, teaching that rest is a teammate, not a weakness. After 30 minutes she dismounted, loosened the girth, and walked beside him while Eli opened a gate to the outer pasture that sloped toward a shallow creek. The watchers followed at a distance, picnic blankets over arms, turning the lesson into a small fair where grass was the carpet and blue sky the only roof needed. At the creek edge Valor hesitated, water swirling over stones, but Mara stepped ankle-deep, splashing gently until ripples glittered like dropped coins that promised wishes come true. Cool ripples lapped her boots, shiny as mirrors. Valor stepped in, hooves sending silver arcs outward. Cold water numbed old aches, and he lowered his muzzle to sip the clean flow that tasted of mountain ice and distant storms. Eli skipped stones upstream, each plink a tiny drumbeat, and Valor watched, eyes following circles that widened then vanished, learning that sudden motions can be playful songs, not threats. Mara unbuckled the saddle, lifted it away, and set it on grass, proving to Valor that hard work always ends in lighter loads and open fields. The dog barked once, chasing a butterfly, and Valor did not spook. Instead, he flicked his tail in lazy approval, a gesture the neighbors read as a banner of growing trust. After cooling, Mara led him up the hill toward the barn, but instead of stalling him, she opened the side pasture gate, a larger space dotted with clover and shaded by an old oak. She unclipped the lead yet remained inside the fence, giving Valor the choice to stay close or roam, because freedom earned is sweeter than freedom given too soon. Valor trotted then cantered, first in short bursts, then a long sweeping arc that threw sunlight off his mane like sparks from a forge where courage is hammered glowing hot. Dust spiraled behind him, glittering in stray sunbeams. His hoofbeats echoed down the lane, loud enough that distant neighbors paused chores, looking up to see a scarred horse running as though stitched from storm and sunrise together. At the far end, he gathered himself and launched into a clean, effortless jump over a fallen branch, landing without stumble, tail flying like a victory ribbon sewn from pure wind. The branch felt like fate's practice hurdle. Joy burst from the watchers, a raw sound that drew tears, because they knew they were witnessing a living answer to every silent question about whether broken stories can end in triumph. Mara wiped her eyes, then drew an invisible check mark in the air, the same gesture a teacher uses when a student solves a puzzle once thought impossible. Valor slowed, walked back, and stopped in front of Mara, head lowering to her chest the way a knight lowers a sword after pledge, and she kissed the star on his forehead. The dog lay at Valor's feet. Eli leaned against the oak, and even the bees hummed in clover, adding music to the cheers, every creature absorbing the bright note of a moment earned by faith. Mara promised the onlookers they could return next week for another lesson and invited them to bring lawn chairs, knowing shared hope multiplies like seeds on wind. Eli suggested they host a small showcase at the county fairgrounds in 1 month, just walk-trot canter, nothing fancy, but enough to let Valor shine under real banners and bright lights. The idea thrilled the neighbors, who volunteered flyers, baked goods, and an old loudspeaker, turning future planning into a spontaneous party right there by the oak. A radio played a slow tune that matched the peaceful rhythm of hearts. Mara knelt, checking Valor's legs for heat or swelling, finding none, and she whispered that his scars might soon be only history lines read aloud to inspire other rescued souls. As shadows stretched long, the group shared lemonade from jars while Valor grazed close, every casual chomp of grass a drumbeat, saying the world can be gentle if people choose it. Before sunset, Mara led him back to the barn, wrapping legs in cool clay, laying lavender between layers, filling the air with a calm scent that settles both worries and flies. She logged the day in the spiral notebook. First ride, no spook, clear jump, community hope ignited, then slipped a pressed clover between pages like a green bookmark of luck. That night the moon rose bright, spotlighting the barn roof, and anyone awake could hear the soft thud of Valor's hooves in dream gallops, rehearsing for tomorrow's encore of hard-won freedom. Mara flipped the spiral notebook to a clean page and circled a bright red date only 3 weeks away, the day Valor would step into the county fair arena with hundreds of eyes on him. Eli, bouncing in sneakers too big for him, took charge of posting flyers at the feed store and library, telling everyone that Hope would be trotting under lights and that lemonade was free. Neighbors painted a portable fence white while humming songs from old Western movies, making each brushstroke a promise that Valor would see shining rails instead of cracked auction boards. Dr. Singh stopped by to check healing scars, nodding with a grin as he felt cool skin and declared the road from pain to power officially wide open and ready for a gallop. Mara set a strict schedule: morning stretches, hill climbs after breakfast, carrot break at noon, then ground poles in the evening, each activity given a smiley face in the notebook. Valor followed the rhythm like a drum major leading a band, stepping higher over poles every day until his hooves clipped nothing but air and the poles looked more like stripes of rainbows. On Tuesday, rain trapped them in the indoor arena, yet Mara turned puddles into lessons, asking Valor to splash through like a brave river explorer chasing hidden treasure maps. Eli organized a puddle jumping contest for farm kids during the break, and Valor watched, ears twitching with laughter, learning that noise can mean fun and not danger. That night, Mara replayed training videos on her laptop and noticed Valor flicking his tail to the beat of the background music, proving even a horse can dance when joy is real. She added music time to practice, choosing slow guitar pieces that matched a steady trot and upbeat drums for canter, letting sound teach pace like a friendly metronome. The next morning, they practiced halting on marker cones painted bright orange, and each perfect stop earned Valor a peppermint until a taste of pause became almost as sweet as speed. Dr. Singh sent herbal poultices by courier, and Mara rubbed them into muscles after workouts, the barn filling with calming smells of mint and chamomile that floated like bedtime clouds. Valor began sleeping stretched on his side rather than standing, a sure sign he finally felt safe enough to dream heavy dreams without keeping one eye open for trouble. Mara dreamed too, imagining banners fluttering as announcers spoke his name, and those dreams pushed her to rise before dawn, checking every buckle twice so nothing could trip their story. Eli stamped admission tickets with a carrot logo and practiced greeting visitors in a mirror, rehearsing smiles so wide they looked like half moons rising over freckles. The local bakery donated 12 dozen cupcakes topped with sugar horses, and the smell drifted down Main Street, turning Fair Day into a holiday nobody wanted to miss. School children sent handmade cards showing Valor leaping over glittery mountains, and Mara taped them on the tackroom wall, forming a mural of cheering stars above polished saddles. A retired rodeo clown offered to warm up the crowd with gentle jokes, vowing no loud horns that might scare Valor, only silly dances and balloon animals shaped like happy ponies. One morning a storm knocked out power, silencing the well pump, but neighbors hauled barrels of water in truck beds, proving that communities, like teams, ride best when rains are shared. With each act of help, Valor stood taller, as if he could feel village pride rising through the earth and lifting him like wind inflating a kite, the tug of shared belief straightening every vertebra in his strong neck and back. Mara switched training to the big pasture, setting bright cross rails, and Valor cleared them with room to spare, tail flagging like a pennant declaring all limits gone. Eli timed the runs on a stopwatch, shouting split seconds that improved every try, and Valor pricked his ears at the cheers, collecting the numbers like shiny coins in memory. Dr. Singh filmed the final gallop session, his voice cracking with excitement when he calculated that the stride length matched healthy racehorses half the gelding's age. After cooling, Mara led him toward the barn, but instead of stalling him, she opened the side pasture gate, a space dotted with clover under an old oak. She left the latch loose, showing that doors were now friendly, not bars. She unclipped the lead yet stayed nearby, allowing Valor to choose distance, and he trotted gentle circles before grazing, proving freedom grows best when trust acts as the fence. Valor trotted then cantered, first in short bursts, then a long sweeping arc that threw sunlight off his mane like sparks from a forge where courage is hammered glowing hot. His hoofbeats echoed down the lane, loud enough that distant neighbors paused chores, looking up to see a scarred horse running as though stitched from storm and sunrise together. At the far end, he gathered himself and launched into a clean, effortless jump over a fallen branch, landing without stumble, tail flying like a victory ribbon sewn from pure wind. Joy burst from the watchers, a raw sound that drew tears, because they knew they were witnessing a living answer to every silent question about whether broken stories can end in triumph. Mara hugged Valor's neck, whispering that scars once called ugly were now maps to treasure, guiding them straight to a stage made for shining, gleaming under strings of fairy lights neighbors had hung on the fence. A day later, the fairground coordinator arrived to inspect paperwork and was moved to tears by Valor licking peanut butter off Eli's offered fingers without flinching, his eyes twinkling with excitement for the show. He approved the entry on the spot and donated stall decorations of blue ribbon streamers, promising the arena crew would dim harsh spotlights during practice rounds. Practices now ended with cool-down walks past orange trees where hummingbirds darted, and Valor learned to keep pace with the tiny wings, matching calm beats with gentle steps. On Saturday, Mara organized a mock show at home, complete with a loudspeaker borrowed from the local football field. Valor trotted in circles while speakers crackled, unfazed. Eli played ringmaster, announcing scores in his best deep voice, and neighbors waved scorecards marked with glitter pens, giving Valor 10s across the board for heart and courage. Mara noted tiny flaws, slight head toss here, early canter depart there, and adjusted cues, determined that every detail would sing harmony on that coming spotlight day. 3 nights before the fair, she slept in the tack room to keep Valor company, the quiet broken only by soft munching and pages turning. Outside, coyotes yipped, yet the barn felt like a fortress of calm. The morning before travel, they practiced loading into a borrowed trailer painted white with blue trim. Valor walked up the ramp without pause, the echo of hooves now a drum roll of adventure, not fear. Eli sprinkled hay on the floor as a smiley face, and Valor munched the nose first, leaving 2 eyes like lucky coins. The boy laughed so hard crumbs fell, and the horse cleaned them up, sealing the joke. Valor lowered his head to Mara's shoulder, and in that bow they knew they already held the greatest prize, family. Fireflies blink outside as night wrapped the farm like a gentle quilt. Dawn arrived bright and cool, and Mara checked the trailer tires one more time before whispering to Valor that their big day had finally come, glowing like a sunrise drawn in chalk. Eli, wearing a green cap with a carapin, ran around the yard making sure every latch, buckle, and hinge clicked tight like a secret handshake. The road to the county fair wound through hills covered in sunflowers, and Mara sang softly so Valor could match the hum of the truck and feel peace, not bounce. At each bend, other cars passed full of kids holding balloons, and every driver who saw the scarred gelding in the white and blue trailer gave a thumbs up or a honk that sounded like cheers. When they reached the fairgrounds, colored flags snapped in the breeze, and the smell of popcorn mixed with warm hay wrapped around them like a welcome blanket. The entry clerk guided them to stall 12, freshly bedded with pine shavings that smelled of new pencils, and Valor sniffed the space before stepping in like a royal guest. Mara hung the ribbon streamers and clipped the handmade cards along the rail, so Valor could see bright crayon mountains and feel the army of young artists standing with him. Eli filled the water bucket, then dashed off to post the schedule, returning with a grin so wide he could hardly speak the words. First class starts in 1 hour. Dr. Singh met them near the warm-up arena, stethoscope swinging, and after a quick listen, he declared Valor's heart steady as a marching drum, ready to lead a gentle parade. Mara tacked up slowly, sliding the lamb's wool saddle pad into place, letting Valor breathe after each girth hole so nothing pinched or surprised him. Outside, the loudspeaker crackled with country music, and Valor's ears flicked, but Mara tapped his neck and said the tune was just another friendly voice. They walked toward the practice ring where other horses pranced, shiny and perfect. Yet some riders stared at Valor's scars with wide eyes that soon softened into respect. Mara guided him in long, slow circles, letting sand warm his hooves and letting his muscles stretch until his stride flowed like water finding its riverbed, each breath puffing small clouds in the cool air. Eli counted 10 flawless trot steps, then waved the signal, meaning it was time to head to the main arena, his favorite stage so far. The gate steward opened a red gate, and big lights overhead glittered like midday stars even though the sun still shone. Crowds filled the bleachers, parents balancing lemonade and cameras, children leaning over rails for better views, and somewhere a band played a bright brass march, rhythms skipping like stones over water. Mara breathed deep, felt Valor mirror her calm, and together they walked into the center where fresh sawdust muffled hoofbeats like soft drums before a story, the world holding its breath to listen. The announcer told the crowd about a horse rescued from an auction, his voice rising like a kite catching wind, and a hush fell over the stands. Even the band paused to hear the tale. Valor stood square, head high, scars glowing copper in the sunlight, and in that silence every scar looked less like hurt and more like lightning trapped in fur, blazing pathways of stories now shared. Mara asked for a walk, and Valor stepped forward, neck arched, each stride smooth as a pencil line across clean paper, excitement buzzing through reins into Mara's palms. The judge nodded, signaling for trot, and Valor lifted into a trot that flicked dust into silver sparks under his rhythmic hoofs, a dance step written by healed muscle. Cheers bubbled up, soft at first, then louder when he changed direction with a feather-like hue, tail streaming behind like a banner in clear sky, proof that light commands every hard memory to fade. Next came canter, and Valor moved into the gate with no limp, legs stretching in even beats that matched the drum line of the band beyond the fence, a song of speed felt in every chest. Children clapped above their heads, popcorn buckets forgotten, as the scarred horse looked every bit a champion written in bold letters, courage printed large enough for everyone to read. Mara guided him down the long side, slowed to a balanced walk, then halted right before the judge, who tipped his hat with eyes shining, hope reflecting in polished boots nearby. The judge whispered, "Well done, brave pair." Yet his mic caught the words and sent them echoing around the arena like secret praise shared with thousands, floating up like lanterns at festival night. For the test of obedience, Mara asked Valor to back 4 steps, and he did so straight and steady, his hooves leaving neat prints like punctuation marks to a perfect sentence, grammar of trust every kid in class could read. A final salute finished the pattern, and Mara bowed her head while Valor lowered his, the pair forming a living sculpture of trust, carved gently by days of careful practice. As they exited, the announcer invited the crowd to make some noise, and the stands erupted into a roar that rolled like ocean waves crashing joyfully on shore, a cheer strong enough to lift hats into the sky. Eli waved both arms, tears sparkling on his cheeks, and even the bakery lady dropped a tray of cupcakes when she clapped too hard, sweet frosting sprinkling like snow on straw. Back at the stall, Valor snorted softly, accepted a peppermint, and leaned his forehead into Mara's chest so gently she felt her heart echo inside his calm breath, 2 heartbeats playing the same steady tune. Dr. Singh appeared, holding a small white envelope stamped with the fair logo, and inside lay a blue ribbon labeled Exhibition of Courage, first place, edges sparkling like morning dew on grass tips. Mara pinned the ribbon to Valor's stall door, but the horse kept nudging it, so she tied it to his halter, letting the silk flutter like a tiny flag of victory each time he breathed, a flutter that made even shy goats peek inside. Reporters arrived with notebooks, asking Mara how scarred skin became shining glory, and she answered that kindness is the best polish ever invented, a lotion you cannot buy but must share. One reporter knelt to eye level with Valor, and the horse stretched his neck so the man could touch a scar, learning its story without a single spoken word, more lesson given by gentle touch than pages could teach. Photos flashed, and each click felt like another promise that people would remember hope longer than hurt after they left the fairgrounds, memories printed in silver light behind closed eyes. Mara walked Valor once more around the barns, letting him see rides twirl and smell cotton candy, teaching him that bright chaos can be safe, too, neon colors blending with dusk without fear. As sunset painted the sky peach and lavender, the fair manager announced over the loudspeaker that today's exhibition was the most attended in 10 years, ticket sellers running out of stubs from the rush. Families drifted by the stall to whisper thank yous to Valor, and many children stroked his neck, leaving small, sticky fingerprints of caramel and wonder, each print a sticky badge of new friendship. When night settled and stars blinked awake, Mara leaned on the stall door, eyes wet, whispering that the world moved today because a scarred horse chose to trust one brave woman, and the world chose to cheer, proving that brave hearts write the loudest music.